ironic sense of humor and biting sarcasm for those of us who spend any time around him. But he was a man of quiet courage, which is another word you will hear again and again, who overcame grievous wounds in order to excel in one of the most public of professions. For me, he was a brother in attempting to defend the honor of those who had answered our country's call at a very difficult time, and who paid the price and deserved a fair and proper place in the judgment of history. He was a fellow Marine, a fellow journalist, and a fellow author, and there were times when that mix for me and Bob could bring some procedural and ethical challenges in terms of his side and mine, as we faced a rather unique set of hurdles in order to build and maintain our friendship. I've worn a number of different hats, and whichever hat I was wearing at one time or another often defined the openness and the character of our relationship. I remember his first call to my office when I was minority counsel on the House Veterans Committee, and he had just begun covering Capitol Hill for the Baltimore Sun. I had never met him before. He told me that he had served as a Marine in Vietnam. I asked him in what capacity, and he told me he had commanded an Ontos platoon. And for those of you who were not around the Marine Corps at that time, the Ontos was a strange anti-tank vehicle armed with 106 recoilless millimeter rifles. It had enormous firepower. Its surface was designed at angles that would deflect enemy anti-tank weapons, such as rocket-propelled grenades. The problem was it was built like a turtle. A hard shell on the outside with a soft underbelly, and there weren't many tanks coming at us in Vietnam, at least in the place we were, but there were a lot of landmines that could destroy the vehicle from underneath, which is how Bob was later wounded on an Amtrak. But by the time I reached Vietnam, all the Ontos vehicles had either been blown up or disassembled so that the 106 millimeter recoilless rifles could be used in defensive perimeters. So I'm on the phone with them and I said, man, if you had an Ontos platoon, you're lucky to be alive. And there was a silence on the other end. And when I met him, I understood why. Then we began a friendship. And then over the next several years, we kept in regular touch. I served as Assistant Secretary of Defense and then Secretary of the Navy. And when Al Gray was selected to be Commandant of the Marine Corps, I invited Bob to a parade at 8th and I, where we were honoring General Gray. This was just after the Iran-Contra debacle broke into the media. And I will never forget him coming up to me right before the parade started, all excited, and telling me about his brilliant idea. He wanted to do a book about me and Ollie North and John McCain and John Poindexter and Bud McFarland, and he wanted to be interviewing me in depth for a long time. I said, Bob, you just ruined a perfectly good friendship. So we entered a new dimension. We had conversations now that every time we did, there was a tape recorder on a table in between us, and quite often a research assistant over on the side taking copious notes. Bob was methodical. He was persistent. My memory was repeatedly challenged. I had to go into my files, had to call friends, pull out notes from years before. Sometimes I'd look at them and think, what the hell did I get myself into allowing this guy to start interviewing me? He interviewed me for 6 years. I started looking at him like maybe he was my therapist. And finally, after he finished the book, the ethical boundaries between interview and subject were reset. The challenges were done. The ordeal was over. The book was published, and we were able to recapture our friendship. But I never, to this day, could bring myself to read his book. And I know he understood why. If he got it wrong, I would only be frustrated. If he got it right, there was no need to. What mattered to me was that when this was over, I hoped that we could recapture that special spirit devoid of politics and literature that defines a perfectly good friendship. And we did. And I will always respect him and admire him For so many reasons, he was a special friend. He was a unique person. I am proud to have known him, and I will tell you, I miss him.